is Brentwood Cathedral, which is on the pilgrimage route on the way to Canterbury. The story is that King Henry II's pal, Thomas à Becket, got himself appointed as Archbishop of Canterbury. 1163, so we're going a bit back in time here, into sort of Norman kings and all that. He's a Plantagenet, isn't he, Henry II? Anyway, he appoints the guy, thinking that he's going to be, his old pal and buddy is going to do exactly what he wants, but it proves to be a real pain in the ass, because being an old pal and buddy, he believes he can tell the king what should be going on, and he follows the party line. The church was very much against a lot of the things that old Henry was up to. So Henry says, who will rid me of this turbulent priest? And I've no idea where that quote comes from. I think maybe apocryphal, but anyway, he was reputed to have said that he would gladly get rid of this damn nuisance, and his knights, or some of them, decided that they can become big pals and buddies of Henry II. That's a good thing to do if they went off and sorted this problem out. So they went off to Canterbury and caught old Thomas unawares, chopped the top of his head off, which didn't do him any good, and he died pretty gruesomely. And just to prove how holy he was, when they were attending to his body, they discovered that he was covered in lice. He hadn't washed for God knows how long. They were very much into the whole scourging and not bothering with sort of worldly things like cleanliness and other such disgusting habits of people. Anyway, so he would naturally had to become a saint, and this was one way of getting the Pope asserting its power over these kings of England who were, getting above themselves. Naturally, Henry, he was pretty cut up about it, and so he had himself whipped and scourged to make amends, and he went off to Canterbury and prostrated himself before the altar and did all sorts of things. They were old pals basically, and he hadn't quite intended to have the guy hacked to pieces. I'm not quite sure what happened to the knights that went and did it. I don't think they fared too well after that. Anyway, it did do the job. It did get rid of him, and politics and all that. So let's have a look inside. Now, normally a town with a cathedral is called a city. And Brentwood is not a city. Now, why is that? Well, it's because this cathedral is a Catholic cathedral. And of course, England is a nominally Protestant country. In Protestant England, Catholic cathedrals just don't count. It's got to be a Protestant cathedral. But there was a bit of trouble between Protestants and Catholics, you see, and here's a monument to William Hunter, and during the reign of Bloody Mary, poor old William refused to give up his Protestantism and become a Catholic, and so the local bishop had him burnt at the stake. Also, just up the road from the Catholic cathedral is a Protestant church, rather grand looking one, but not a cathedral, dedicated to the same saint as the Catholic cathedral, or rather odd.
This is St Thomas of Canterbury Cemetery, and Brentwood here was on the pilgrim's route from Tilbury Docks to Canterbury, to the shrine for Thomas à Becket.
And when you go into this church, you'll find it's actually strangely more ornate than the Catholic Church. During the English Civil War in the middle of the 17th century, the Puritans would burst into churches and smash stained glass windows, and they'd tear down Virgin Marys and crucifixes even. They would rip out anything that looked ostentatious and leave it as plain as possible. They were the Taliban of their period, but they obviously missed this church, which looks rather grand. It's interesting that a conflict that started 1,000 years ago now and still affects the political status of Brentwood. We've gone on an adventure, and we've turned up in Grays. So the goodness Grays are in Grays, Essex. Grays was named after Henri de Grey, and he was a courtier, a favourite of King John of the Robin Hood stories, if you must know. And his great-great-great-grandfather, I do believe, fought with William the Conqueror in 1066. Anyway, Henry de Grey bought the manor here from a local Jewish family. He would have been called Jacob the Jew, and that it was bought from them in 1195. And interestingly, Henri de Grey went on to found quite a large dynasty that spread out throughout the land of England and Scotland, and there's plenty of aristocrats, Lord Greys and Marquis de Greys, and Greys spelt with an A, Greys spelt with an E, and it's all quite possible that I'm actually related. So what do you reckon? What do you know?
I don't know. This is a really mixed place here. I've seen people of all ethnicities here, and the shops match. We've got Khan's Butchers, we've got a first-class gents hair salon. We've got Brian's Florist, Moe's Tailoring. Now
Well, it's probably Jewish.
Nagawa Takeaway.
We assume a lot of the people must work on Tilbury docks. So that's what the business is all around here. It's all about the docks.
The barges drift with the turning tide, red sails wide, leeward on the heavy spar. T.S. Eliot.
Now, why do you think they've got a monument of sorts to barges?
Oh, I guess they've got Thames barges, you know.
Yeah. We are so out of touch with what's going on in this country. We have not even had a Greg's pie, and we don't quite know what anything is or why. For instance, there's well, in 1040 AD, It's recorded that the first priest in this here area was Wulfstan the Wild One. I don't know what was making him wild, but he'd inherited the manor of Thurrock. And Thurrock is it's a Saxon word that means the boat's bottom. So maybe that's what made him wild. A church started to emerge here, so the Normans were built in it. And 1152, the church was then given to the Knights Hospitallers of St John of Jerusalem by William de Ferrers. So I assume William de Ferrers came in with William the Conqueror in 1066, or at least his family did. And then William de Ferrers, he sold the manor to a rabbi. But I guess he was hedging his bets there, because you had Josh the Rabbi in the manor and the Knights Hospitallers of St John in the church. Anyway, the son of Josh the Rabbi, this is the famous Jacobi, he sold it on to the Grey family, and no doubt they must be relatives of mine. I'm sure I came from some sort of noble stock. So that's the story of this church as far as I can work out. I'm sure there's far more to it than that, but it is interesting that originally a rabbi owned this area, and of course you had the Knights Hospitallers, and it's all very mixed up, and I'm sure there's much more to find out about it, but there you go. That's the story so far.
Of course, our current habit of cremation and temporary memorials, if you can afford to buy them, or you think it's worth the money, being put up for 20 years and disappeared, it would lose it's losing an awful lot of history. One of the things you discover from these old graves is one, how old people were when they died. Two, where did they come from? And quite often what they did, or what some of them did anyway. So there was obviously a ministry and a sailing community around here. And we're looking at dates of 1850 onwards, so second half of the 19th century, early the 20th century here. So not terribly old, at least not in British terms.
This is the late 1800s.
Yeah. We're looking a bit windswept here, and it's because we're coming towards. It's not quite the sea; it's the Thames at the sea end. Oh, right, okay.
Back a bit doesn't have to be great.
There you are. Very interesting pictures, I'm sure.
I hope you enjoyed this little excursion into the English countryside. Don't forget, we also have a Facebook page called Goodness Grace. Do go along there and follow us, leave any comments, and similarly press the like, share, subscribe button and look forward to seeing you next time.